involved. I just had a certain communication with George to help him, get settled and to choose some right places and give him some advice about the football club. And just, he seemed like a wonderful guy who, I'm telling you now, would have been a fantastic player for Panathinaikos. Just to kind of have a look and see some Greek fans and the Panathinaikos fans, honestly, I miss it so much. That's why I still drink out of my favourite cup that I stole on my last day there. So, no, I'm joking. I paid my €4.
Έτοιμος.
Θα δείξει.
Πρώτη συνέντευξη για το Ole.gr, ποδοσφαιρική, γιατί μπασκετικές μέχρι τώρα έχει κανονίσει ο Μάνος Φυρογέννης.
Έχει κάνει αρκετή δουλίτσα, δεν που τα λέμε.
Έχει κάνει πάρα πολύ δουλίτσα και πρέπει κάπως να τον ισοπαρίσουμε. Οπότε
Ξεκινάμε δυναμικά. Με τι άλλο, με επερχόμενο μάτς στην Ευρώπη.
Παναθηναϊκός απέναντι στην Τζέλσι. Και με καλεσμένο
το μοναδικό Άγγλο που έχει παίξει στο Παναθηναϊκό.
Τον Λουκ Στιλ. Πάμε να τον ακούσουμε.
Πάμε, ας βάλουμε ακουστικά.
Πάμε. Thank you very much, Luke, for being here, for being our first interview in the new project of Betarades, Ole.gr. Firstly, we would like to know what are you doing now, where are you working, and how is this a new chapter in your career as a coach now?
Yeah, so this is my third season as a football manager. I know you guys call it a coach, but the head of a team called Peterborough Sports. This is why I'm representing the hat, and it's something that I didn't plan to do. I didn't plan to become a coach. I got offered a very good job, and it's very close to where I'm from in England, in Peterborough. So I took that job I think we're in the sixth tier of English football, so from the Premier League with the league 6 down, a very small club with a really good project, and we've managed to stay in the league now for 3 seasons, or this is our 3rd season, and get far in the cup. So we were 2 games from Wembley in the cup, and very close last week in the FA Cup, which is an achievement. There's lots of rounds before you get into the first round proper, and we were just 1 game away. So I'm enjoying that very much. It's something that, like I said, I didn't plan to do as a player. I did do some coaching badges at Nottingham Forest, but I didn't plan to go into management, and here I am, kind of enjoying it, kind of not.
It's more difficult to be a player or a football manager?
Or a striker?
I'd say it's most difficult to be a goalkeeper. When I played as a striker for 2 years, that was definitely the easiest on the brain, not on the legs, but on the brain. It was easiest and less pressure. But a manager is very similar to being a goalkeeper. You get judged on the mistakes, and obviously, I'm learning. I'm a young manager, but it's definitely something that consumes all day, every day of your life if you let it, and it takes very strong people to be a manager, and I respect more now that all the coaches and managers I had, having done 2 years as a coach myself. It's just mind-blowing, the problems and the things that you have to deal with as a coach.
So you are ready to come back in Greece and maybe work as a Panathinaikos manager?
Yeah, I mean, I say all the time to my friends who I see working with me, when we're ready, we'll go to Greece and manage Panathinaikos. That's the dream. That's the ultimate goal. And I think that, I've got some really good friends who are very good coaches, one who's been in the Premier League and in the Championship now. And I'm kind of at that age at 40 where a lot of my friends who wanted to become managers, they're living that dream. So in my head, I kind of think of a team that I could bring if that happened one day. And, like I always said, it can be joked around, or it can be thought of as a realistic goal, but certainly I'd like to earn that spot by doing these hard years as a manager, especially starting off. So yeah, certainly I wouldn't rule that out.
But only for Panathinaikos?
No, not only for Panathinaikos. Lots of Greek teams. I think there was some fantastic sides that I came across, and some small clubs in like peculiar places that I'd never even heard of, and I remember just loving some of the small stadiums and the atmospheres and the cages and all of that in the Super League. So no, not just for Panathinaikos. I think that managing in Greece would be an honour, and having been there for 3 years and learned a little bit about the culture, not only of Panathinaikos but of the whole country, I think I have an insight into football over there, and definitely the people. So I'm an open book. I think there's certain clubs maybe it's best not to go to for me, but there's certainly a lot of clubs that would be a possibility.
Let's go back to your time at Mántsesτερ Γιουνάιτεντ. How it was to be with Edwin van der Sar?
He was the best. I've said a few times he was the best on the pitch, off the pitch. For me personally, as a 19, 20-year-old just starting off in first team football, he was fantastic, and I learned most of him over every goalkeeper I ever worked with. And even when we played Ajax years later, he's a complete gentleman and a really nice guy, and I have a lot of respect for him. And, you know, he was certainly somebody I'd look up to as a player before he joined, and then as a goalkeeper at that age, seeing someone of his stature and his trophy cabinet, you know, he lived up to that and more.
How was it to be so young, work in the same place, in the same team, train every day with legends like Ferdinand, Giggs, Paul Scholes?
It's so difficult. The more I look back at it and think about it, it's so surreal, because those were the guys that I idolized as a kid. Only months before, weeks before, I had maybe a calendar of Manchester United. I had pictures on the wall of times they'd won things, and then I was put in a situation training with them. It's just such an odd situation that, looking back, I wish I had the mentality of maybe a 30-year-old, 25, 30-year-old, but at the time it was certainly so exciting, but very difficult for me as a player. And I think I have a lot of respect for the young boys who get brought into this situation now. I can see it because I lived through it, and how they don't always live up to the hype, because mentally it's such a tough task to go and train and play with like some of these players when you kind of regard them as heroes. So coming from a humbling kind of background, not a big city, those people were put on a pedestal, and you know, I struggled for those few years, but it was a time that I would, you know, love to go back and do again.
So you played with Cristiano Ronaldo. It was then his third season at Manchester United. Why do you think that Cristiano Ronaldo became the superstar that he is today? I mean, he's one of the best players of all time. How did he manage that?
Well, he managed it, like everybody keeps saying to the world, if they listened, that he wasn't just born with that talent. He worked and worked and worked. And it's nice to be able to look back and see that me and him stayed out and practiced free kicks. But in the first few weeks we was practicing free kicks, he wasn't good at it. He was hitting the ball into the car park, hitting the ball into the trees, you know, missing the target over and over again. And this wasn't him as a kid. He was 19, 20, and he was learning. And, you know, you can tell people enough, but I think if you've got the ability to learn, then you've got the ability to be anything. And I took so much from that, because at the time I didn't realize, but then looking back, I saw him perfecting everything that he did. I certainly didn't think he'd be the world's best player, and nobody did there. But I suppose they say that about all the greats. I don't think anybody just starts off as the best player. So even last week I was speaking to a boy who we have, who's 20 years old, plays in midfield, and he takes free kicks. But I look back and say to him, I don't see you practicing at the end of the training. I don't see you taking a bag of balls for 15, 20 minutes every single time. I see him taking one and he goes in. And I said, look, what do you want to do? You got the pitch, you got the goals, you got the goalkeepers, you got the footballs. Go and do it. Don't think that those details don't make a big difference, because if you take 25 free kicks and you score one goal, it means that you've not practiced. And, you know, that's the thing that I took most from someone like Ronaldo.
How was his character? Because, you know, many people judge in the social media, many things are said. How was Cristiano Ronaldo as a character at that time?
Well, he was young, he was vulnerable, he was emotional, like we all are at 19, 20. You know, he wasn't the guy he is today. Even now, he's not a guy who doesn't live in fear. He lives in fear like we all do, but it's the ability to live in fear and be scared and be vulnerable, but still do the right thing, still practice, still move forward. You know, that's the biggest lesson I learned, that the brave people aren't the ones who aren't scared. The brave ones are the ones who are scared and they do it anyway. And that's how he was, and that's how I saw him at a young age, being told, oh, stop doing this, stop doing that. But he would practice, he would listen and take on board. But I don't think he was any supernatural character. I think that he built that himself. He decided at a young age, and he built that character and that wall, and, you know, built the tools. He built his left foot, he built his right foot, he built the ability to jump and to head the ball. But he did that by practicing over and over again. And I see everything he did in the gym, and a guy that we used to have, Mike, in the gym, that Cristiano would ask, how do I get this muscle? How would I get that muscle? How do I jump higher? So it's specifics. It's not just, oh, I'm just going to be better. It's asking, and doing.
We know a story. Cristiano Ronaldo has done great things in his career. He has won so many battles, but in one battle, you said that before, that you've won him. Sometime you tried to flirt a girl, and the girl chose you and not Cristiano Ronaldo. I think you told the story in a podcast.
Yeah, and I'm reminded constantly. That's a light-hearted podcast in England. You know, I've got lots of little stories like that. But yeah, that was just when, because we're the same age, me and Ronaldo. So, you know, we'd go out as a team and socialise and things like that. And, you know, that's something that before he became this big name, funny how at that point, not everybody knew him. If that happened a year after, then it's a completely different story, because the girl asked me so innocently, like, oh, who's your friend? Like, and I was joking, saying, oh, he's a reserve team player. And she believed me, but a year later, everybody on the planet knew.
You played pretty much games at Championship. Do you believe that a team from the first 5 places in our league, in Greek league, could win the title in Championship?
It's a good question. I knew there was going to be a good question along the way. I get asked that question a lot also. And I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is yes. I think that you have to remember, I have to remember from when I played in Greece in those 3 years. Let's be honest, Olympiacos were the strongest side, especially just take the first year. But in that first year, I remember being in Glyfada and watching Olympiacos, and they beat Juventus. Okay? So just using that, I know they had a strong side. Using that, I don't think a championship side over the last 20 years who have won it could play Juventus 10 times and they would never beat Juventus. So you have to remember, when they were strong, I think, yes, they would have won the championship. Now, the last few years, I've not watched as much Greek football, so it's difficult, but I know that there's still a lot of good players. But I still believe that, yes, the best team in Greece would win the championship. Definitely.
You've talked about Olympiacos and how big and strong was as a team at that time. On the other side, what did Panathinaikos miss and couldn't win a title at the 3 years that you were at the club?
I think it was that little bit of quality in depth. You understand, like the 20 good players. I remember thinking that when we looked at Olympiacos and we were so close for a lot of that season, it was always 3 points, 4 points in it. We had 2 big games against them. We lost one and won one. I just felt that they had more depth than us. So when players were missing, they had quality coming in. And of course, they had some internationals that were probably at a high level. We had some good players, but a few of our internationals like Pranic, Mladin, even the Greek internationals, they were a little bit at the end of their careers, so they wasn't at the top of the game. Yeah, it always comes down to quality, which inevitably comes down to money. You know, if you pay somebody a certain wage, they're usually going to be a better player. And I think that there's no fault in not winning the championship. In those 3 years I was there, I think we came second, third, second, whatever it was. But I just felt that over a whole course of a season, they were stronger. But not by a lot.
I think that's a good time to ask you about the most difficult opponent here in Greece. And
the most difficult opponent?
Yes.
Do you remember Mantalos?
Yes.
Yeah.
He still plays for AEK.
Yeah, I saw that the other day. He was a good player. Very professional, very focused. Yeah. I still can't believe that the Greeks haven't sorted out home and away fans. After 10 years since I've been there, and I said it, I thought it was like I remember being there asking and saying, like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, they're banned at the moment. And I was under the impression that it was just it's just these years, then it will all go back to normal. But the fact that you don't have home and away fans is disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. And I've said that before. You can't have away games with no fans. If you can't police that and sort that out, then I think it's always going to restrict the league. But I hope that someday I can see that, because it's really important. No, but I remember Berbatov in that second year. My one big regret was not scoring against PAOK in the last game in the second year. I think it was to qualify for this Champions League spot.
Yes.
And I headed it, and a defender just leant on me, and I was so sad that summer, because nobody blamed me. Everyone said, wow, you did well. And I knew I could have hit the target. And I remember in that game, I think it was that game, Berbatov might have scored a penalty, but yeah, it was fantastic. When I see players like this going to Greece, it's great because they bring the flair and, you know, the excitement. So I hope more players, you know, with big stature, you know, like Gilberto or Cambiasso and people like that. It's great seeing them going over to Greece. And I know that Martial's just gone there, hasn't he?
Yes. Anthony Martial and Eric Lamela at AEK, Willian at Olympiacos, Bakayoko from Chelsea to PAOK, Lovren.
We had a crazy summer here.
Yeah, it's
Very
great.
big names. And your favorite teammate?
Favorite teammate is probably Zeka.
Never stop running.
Never stop running, yeah. Obviously, for the things on the pitch when he played, I used to get excited when he tracked back 70 yards just to make a tackle, and then we'd be on the offense again. And you know, he just never stopped running. He's such a positive guy. He's one of my favorite captains that I've played with, and you know, the fact that when he went back recently, I was so excited to see that, and I really want to get to a game. You know, this season it's one of my things to do, but I'm so busy with my own football, it's difficult. But I think this season I will for sure come to a game. The funny thing is that I was planning to come to the cup final game last season, and I didn't know that there was no fans allowed. So on that week, something happened and I couldn't come, and I was like, gutted, I can't come now. I was booking the flights, and then I saw the game and I was like, where's the fans? And I was so happy that I didn't go, because if I'd have gone and there'd been no fans, because I didn't read anything, hadn't seen anything, I would have just been like devastated, because for me, this isn't football at all. This isn't football. You've got so many great fans, so many brilliant ideas with flares, smoke, and to have the cup final with no fans is just so bizarre. You're probably so used to it now.
So could you tell us any unknown story from back then?
Lots of things happened to me. Like, the thing is, I took a lot of photos. I had like a phone with a camera, and there's lots of photos I didn't post or put online, and I was always taking pictures because I see things all the time, and it was just a crazy journey. I've spoke about it lots of times. You know, from the moment they gave me those car keys and I started driving in Greece, I used to have adventures without even trying. Getting lost in the Greek mountains on my first week. I've never spoke about that, because Panathinaikos, they train up in the bottom of this mountain in Koropi. And I didn't have a sat nav. I didn't have it on my phone. It was 10 years ago. I didn't have a sat nav on the thing either. Got given directions, and I love to be early. I'm never late, so I leave so early for everything. And I was nervous. It was my first day, and I remember getting lost in the Greek mountains at the bottom of this Koropi. And honestly, I was sweating in this little Nissan Micra. I was going down roads the wrong way. There was people beeping me. I was like an hour just lost constantly, and asking people where it is. No one understood me. There was goats and sheep, cows or turtles running across the roads. And I remember getting there just on time. So even though I was so early, because I got lost so much, I got there just on time. And I was thinking, they must think I'm just like not professional, getting there at 9 o'clock rather than 8 o'clock. And yeah, that was a nightmare. And that was exactly my first day at Panathinaikos. And even now,
what the first day.
Yeah, I get scared driving there because in case I get lost and there's a road shut or something. But, you know, many amazing times on and off the pitch. For 2.5 years, I was in the team. Probably last 6 months, I wasn't, because Oddy was there and he was great. When I came back to England, I had Leicester City and they asked me about a goalkeeper. I said, look, to replace Schmeichel. And I told them about Odysseus, and I said, look, you can get him for very cheap, maybe 1.5, 2 million euros. And they said to me, you know, we don't know, and this. And I said, look, I trained with him. I know his character. He's going to be a very good goalkeeper. And 4 years later, they asked me again. They said, do you have, you know, what happened to that goalkeeper you told us to buy? This is the first team coaches at Leicester. And I said, he's Benfica's #1. He plays every week in the Champions League. He's 15 million euros now, and this just made me laugh, because when you play with people week in, week out, and you know them, there's no one better to judge, not the fans, not the coach, but the players around each other. And you know, Oddy's had a fantastic career, and you know, I helped him. You know, different people asked me at Forest and Newcastle and things like that. But yeah, Leicester missed out on making millions of euros there, I think. But hey, not everybody listens. You know, I said the same about John Stones when I was younger. My agent came to me and said if I said I've got a player, he's 16, 17, and I played with him at Barnsley, and I said, look, you've got to take this player. I think he's going to be a professional. He's going to be top player, but I didn't know how good. And they had to pay 40,000 euros to get him out of his contract with his agent. And they asked me if I'm sure. And I said, look, if you don't pay it, I'll pay it, because I see him every day. And then 5 years later, they sold him for a world record, £50 million. So you got to listen to the players.
Going back to Panathinaikos, you spent here 3 years of your career. I have read many interviews saying that maybe this was the best years of your career. What kind, we use a phrase here in Greece, what kind of flavor did this time at Panathinaikos left to you? And if there's something that you could change, what will it be?
What kind of flavour? I like that. I never heard that before. It's right. It's the best time that I had, because I was in the deep end, and I'll be honest, I think they took me as a number 2 goalkeeper, or somebody who they weren't sure if I was going to play a lot. But I think at 29, you're at the top of your powers, especially as a goalkeeper. And, you know, playing in Europe was fantastic for me, because I wasn't at a top Premier League side. I had to earn my way, and it was a big gamble because I was a long way from home. And although I say it's the best time of my life, not just career, it was the best time of my life, it was the hardest, because when I shut the door into my apartment, I didn't have friends, I didn't have family. I had teammates, but a lot of those had family. And it was easy when we had a good day, but when we had a bad day or I had a bad performance and I shut that door and I'm thousands of miles from anybody, it's very difficult. And this is the biggest thing I learned about all the foreign boys that I played with and the foreign boys that we have at our club now. Being away from home is difficult, and it takes a man to do that, if you know what I mean. It takes guts to kind of make that leap and to hang in there even when it was bad or even when we lost games. But that's why I think of it as the best time, because then all of a sudden, from saying that I had no friends, no people, I had people of Panathinaikos. And by that, I obviously mean the players, the coaches, the people who worked there. But then all of a sudden, people from the street, people from, you know, supporters would help me. And the guy in the cafe across the road who I'd sit and have a coffee or have lunch or dinner with all the time, he looked after me in ways that I didn't expect, but they kind of just helped me.
Back to now, Panathinaikos is going to play against Chelsea. Definitely it's going to be a difficult match. Do you believe that has any possibilities to win, to get a draw?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So sure.
Like that Conference League is, I think it's a very unpredictable place, and I think that Chelsea won't be used to coming here and playing those sort of games. I don't know how hot it is at the moment there, but those games are big nights, and it won't be easy at all for Chelsea to win that. And I think with the atmosphere and the mentality that I know that is in that team, that Panathinaikos team at the moment, I think it's set up for a great occasion. I wish I could come over and watch that one, but I cannot because we have training, and it's very important.
Do you think that the stadium will play also its part? You know that when Oaka is full, even it isn't the warmest stadium in Greece, it can be a very good, how can I say it, home ground. Yes, maybe home ground.
I think that was the hardest stadium I played in, because we played against AEK. That was their home when I was there, and I didn't like it at all because it wasn't full. It was a big space around the track. I didn't feel comfortable in that stadium. It's so strange you say that, because I never had a warm feeling there. But now it's Panathinaikos' home for this game, and I've seen the pictures, the videos. I think that can really work for them. And, you know, Chelsea won't be expecting this. They won't be expecting that sort of hostile atmosphere, and it's set up for a great game. I hope that they can get off to such a fast start, which I've seen them start some games recently so fast, and I think that if they get off to a good start, they could really put it to Chelsea. But yeah, it would be a great occasion, a really good game to watch.
Have you watched any Panathinaikos game this year?
Only highlights. Mate, only highlights. Like, obviously we play on those games those days, and it's actually Odysseus who sends me the link how to watch games. He's a genius. I'm too old. For some reason, he's always been good on those things. And we always say, I always say, send me the link. How do I watch this game? And it's, yeah, with 3 children, it's not easy all the time. But I've watched bits and bobs. Obviously, the main focus is on the tragic news of recent events. So, you know, I haven't thought about the actual games very much.
That's what I wanted to ask you. I'm sure that you watched the England game against Greece in Wembley, and I also saw your post. Your post went viral here in Greece about Τζορτζ Μπάλντοκ and his tragic death. Would you like to tell us a few words about it?
Yeah, you know, starting off with that game against England, I had finished training. I came into the bar where everybody watches England or the game, and you know, I was certainly cheering on Greece. 100%. And I've never ever done that against my country, ever. Like, I wouldn't even think of it. But because of the circumstances and the of who it is and, you know, what's been happening, and I knew a few of those guys on the pitch for Greece and England, but, you know, more for Greece. And I just thought it was such heroic, historic win. I think that what went into that and how they played when I saw the game, it was just superb. And you had a lot of England fans in there applauding them where I was. So first of all, that was just fantastic. And, you know, to follow that up with another victory, the national team's doing really well. But the whole situation was completely tragic. And, you know, it's funny because my good friends played for Sheffield United, so they knew George, and I obviously speak to a few Panathinaikos players who also knew George. And as soon as he signed for the club, I was talking with him because I knew him on a level where I trained with him a few years ago and nearly signed for Sheffield United once, but didn't know him very well. But as soon as he signed for Panathinaikos, I reached out and said, listen, this is where you should live. This is what you should do. Hold on. I said, like, well, we had conversations on messages, and he was great. He was excited about it. And, you know, it was so good for me because I knew nobody else had gone from who is English. And I know he's Greek, but he's English-Greek. He's Greeklish, as you guys say. But he, you know, I was giving him advice on things. It was very difficult because he ended up choosing the apartment next to mine where I lived for 3 years. And that's where the events took place. And after his injury, I hadn't spoke to him in quite a few weeks. And then I saw that he played really well. And then that night to see the events take place and you know, to realize that he chose the apartment exactly next to mine, those 2 buildings, and see my flat was, you know, was on show on TV and on the news, and then seeing he chose that one next door was just very difficult. And I just think that at the moment in England, like, you guys are getting a lot of credit and the club are getting a lot of credit for how they're dealing with it. I think that's, you know, great. It's really great, but I didn't expect any other thing from Panathinaikos, the way that they've dealt with it, the news that has come from there. So yeah, I've kind of touched base with some Greek players, but you know, how they're dealing with that to lose a teammate is just unimaginable. That never happened to me. A lot of journalists want to speak about these sort of things, but for me, it has to be a respect thing, which is why I've probably waited until this time to speak to anybody, because it's not for me to talk about in the first few weeks. It's not like I was a big friend of George and I'm just the middle guy. So I've kind of tried to speak to the guys from Sheffield and the guys from Panathinaikos because they have a lot of questions, and I'm trying to bridge things together, you know, and help that way. And, you know, like, it's not for me to speak about too personally because I'm not the one directly involved. I just had a certain communication with George to help him, you know, get settled and to choose some right places and give him some advice about the football club. And just, he seemed like a wonderful guy who, I'm telling you now, would have been a fantastic player for Panathinaikos. I know that for a fact because he finds a way. And those sort of people who find a way to win, find a way to play well, you know, he would have done really well for the club.
You probably cannot give the perfect answer to it. Probably you have to live something like that, and I wish you not to live something like that. But how difficult is it for a player to learn about this tragic event, this tragic death, and the other day, a few hours later, go out and play such a difficult, not only difficult, such a game, any game, against England in his one of his countries, of their teammates' countries?
It was coincidental that fixture was in place. You know, it was just a complete coincidence, and Georgia was obviously having the rest from coming back from injury, and we thought that the game wouldn't go ahead, but it obviously did. I don't know how they got through that, because he would have had some close friends in that Greek team, but football and life, it does go on, and sometimes I think that I don't think things should stop. I think things should go on, because that's where you get the positivity and the emotion together, rather than everybody being inside at home. The fans don't go and they're in. But if you're out there and you're together, then it's the only way to move forward. And those Greek players have obviously done their country and George proud, and George's family proud. And they've made a real good impression on a lot of English people.
I think that's the best message you can give and pass.
Okay, we're gonna see another game between England and Greece, this time at our country. What do you believe that the English team, how is gonna react?
Well, obviously we have a new manager, and that's going to change the dynamic. It's going to say, it's going to give them a boost, or it's going to make people want to impress. Obviously the guys won't like getting beat. They want to win the group. They expect to win the group, if we're honest. But I think, again, that's going to be a fantastic game. Is that in the National Stadium?
Yes.
Yeah. So, that's going to be a really exciting one, because if the Greeks can get something there, a draw, then it looks like they'd win that group, and that'd be an amazing achievement. But no, the English will be out for blood, as we say. They'll be out for revenge. I think they won't take anything lightly, because they now know the force of the Greek national side is on the up. And I wouldn't say there's any huge players for Greece. Maybe your opinion's different, but I think there's definitely a fight in there. Even before the tragic events of George, they looked like there was a fight in there, and a real kind of togetherness that is worth three fantastic players. And if you have that, then you've got a good chance. You've got a good chance of qualification. I think with Greece, it's so important that they're at these national tournaments. I think it's, even before I lived there, I think because of not just 2004, but just because of the history of the country and the people, it's so important they get to a national tournament. I think it's always a better tournament with the Greeks in it. There's certain South American clubs that I also think, like Colombia and teams like Chile, like you want those in there. But I think from the European side of it, the smaller ones like Greece, these national tournaments, Scotland is obviously one that the fans bring so much energy and passion to the tournament.
Thank you very much, Luke.
Thank
it
you
was
very
a pleasure.
much.
No worries, lads. All the best. Anything you need, give me a shout, okay?
We really hope to see you or to the game of Greece against England, or working as a Panathinaikos manager.
I keep saying this to everybody that I'm coming over, but I am definitely coming over. I'm going to miss training on Thursday one day. If somehow I can get there on this Thursday from London, but I think it's impossible, I will be there. But I'm going to try my best to be there. Whatever stadium it is, Oaka, Leoforos, it'd be a dream for me. I think that just to kind of have a look and see some Greek fans and the Panathinaikos fans, is honestly, I miss it so much. That's why I still drink out of my favourite cup that I stole on my last day there. So no, I'm joking. I paid my €4. But I miss it so much, and I'm definitely going to come back and watch like a home game. That's my dream soon.